Shalom, welcome to Tactically Torah. I am Heath Hayes, and today is day 17 of Read the Bible in a Year, and we will finish Genesis today with Genesis chapters 48, 49, and 50. All right, so without further delay, let's just jump right into it. Chapter 48, page 54 in the Scriptures. And after these events it came to be that it was said to Joseph, "See, your father is sick," and he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob, was told, "See, your son Joseph is coming to you." And Israel strengthened himself and sat up in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me, and said to me, See, I am making you fruitful, and shall increase you, and make of you an assembly of peoples, and giving his land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim before I come to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by your name, or let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance." So he's saying, let Ephraim and Manasseh be called by the name of their brothers Reuben and Simon in their inheritance. Wow. And when I came from Paddan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Israel saw Joseph's sons, and said, "Who are these?" And Joseph said to the father, "They are my sons, whom Elohim has given me in this place." And he said, "Please bring them to me, and let me bless them." And the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see, and he drew them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, "I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has shown me your seed." So Joseph brought them from between his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. So what that's saying is Ephraim was brought to be on Israel's left side, and Manasseh was brought to be on Israel's right side. So what he did was he took his hands, because the greater blessing came from the right hand, right? And that blessing what he did was he crossed his hands over and put his blessing hand, his right hand, on Ephraim. Okay? So Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, "The Elohim before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, and the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths." And let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people. He also is great, and yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. Praise Yah. And he blessed them on that day, saying, In you, Israel, shall bless, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said to Joseph, See, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I have given you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. So he says in verse 19, Yet his younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations. So the nations is, essentially the idea of disbursement of the people, right? So Ephraim and Manasseh, they were mixed. So they were half Egyptian, half Hebrew. And then those nations are two prominent nations that are intermixed amongst Babylon and never brought back. And it is my belief that the nations of Ephraim and Manasseh are completed in you and I, us today, as we are grafted in by the belief of by our belief in Yeshua as Messiah and our obedience to keep and obey the commands of the Most High. We are grafted into that tribe of what I believe is personally Ephraim and Manasseh, more specifically Ephraim. So that's 48. Chapter 49. And Jacob called his sons and said, Gather together, so that I declare to you what is to befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it, and he went up to my couch. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly, because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divided them in Yaakov to scatter them in Israel. You, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion. And of course, my thought goes back to the idea of where it says, oh goodness. In 48 verse 5, and now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim before I came to you in Mitzrayim, are mine. Your sons are mine, is what he's saying. As Reuben and Shimon, they are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. So it's cool. So it's interesting that there is no blessing for Reuben and Simon. So Ephraim and Manasseh kind of take the place of their blessing. Levi is later, the tribe of Levi, or Levi is later blessed as a tribe, whereas their inheritance becomes essentially being blessed by the other tribes, and they are in service to the Father, so to speak. So they don't have a worldly inheritance. Their inheritance is the Most High. Excuse me. Let's see. Verse 9. Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down. He crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who does rouse him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from in between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And to him is the obedience of peoples. That's capital H, until Shiloh. I wonder if that's referring to Messiah, Yeshua. Just a thought. I don't know. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. And he saw that the resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly rules his peoples as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider falls backwards. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahweh. Gad, a raiding band raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose, he gives words of elegance. Yosef is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. The archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the El of your Father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with the blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, and blessings from the breasts and of the womb. The blessing of your father have excelled in the blessings of my ancestors up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Yosef, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them. He blessed each one according to his own blessing, and he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. And they were buried, Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Levi. And there I buried Leah. Forgive me. The field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the sons of Heth. And when Jacob ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. And chapter 50, wrapping up Genesis. And Yosef fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Yosef commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are completed the days of embalming. And the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Yosef spoke to the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh. Please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying, bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Pharaoh said, Go up. Bury your father as he has made you swear. And Yosef went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the house of Yosef, and his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones, and their flocks, and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, and they lamented there with great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why its name is called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Jordan. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them, for his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his father, Yosef returned to Mitzrayim, and he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Yosef hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him? And they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before your father died, he commanded, saying, This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of Elohim of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, See, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim? And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now do not fear, I provided for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim. All right, that's Genesis and Shabbat. Tomorrow is Shabbat, and we will begin the book of Exodus. Shalom.